You're listening to Spotlight, the podcast that fosters connections with veterans and military spouses. Here's your host, Bob Louthan.
Hey everybody, this is the Spotlight on the VeteranCrowd Network. This is your host, Bob Louthan. Welcome everybody today. Very pleased to have Jake Hutchings as my guest today. As he said, he is the Senior Vice President of Enterprise Sales for RecruitMilitary, a former Army officer. Hoorah, there we go. And going to be talking today about recruiting and his military experience. Hey, Jake, welcome to the program. Thank you for stepping into the spotlight.
Oh, Bob, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, we didn't have recruiting for the military a long time ago. I sort of tell people I came out of the analog army. This is a really interesting development. It's supposed to be a rewarding field for somebody like yourself to step into.
Yeah, I've been here for 12 years now, and I love every single. I don't know the difference between a Saturday and a Wednesday. I love what we do. Helping veterans and companies connect and understand those transferable skills where they make the most amount of sense is truly rewarding, and it's also a ton of fun. I really appreciate it.
So, but before we kind of dive into the recruiting thing, and I know we're going to have a lot to talk about, how did you wind up going in the Army? You were an armor officer. Clank, clank, kill a tank, right?
Yeah, right. Tanks don't go where the long grass grows. Right. There's all the good sayings, right? I was a freshman in college playing football at a small Catholic school in Worcester, Massachusetts during 9/11. It was my freshman year. And 9/11 happened. I remember I just played, it was a Tuesday, and I had just played my first college football game. And I said, I'm going to drop out and join the military. And I went and met with Sister Ellen, who was one of the nuns at Assumption. And I told her, I said, I'm going to drop out. And she said, well, before you do that, I'd love for you to go meet Captain Ryder, who is a professor of military science over at WPI, and he runs the Army ROTC program. She said, will you just do me that favor before you drop out? And I said, yes, ma'am, I will. I'd be happy to do it. And I went down and met Captain Ryder, who is a hua of a hua. And he said, Jake, I have one scholarship left. And if you can run 2 miles, and you can do push-ups and sit-ups, I'll give it to you. And I promise you this won't be over by the time you get out of college. So I did my first Army APFT on September 12th, 2001 in khaki shorts, a polo shirt, and sneakers, and signed down the dotted line for my 4-year scholarship right after that. And then I graduated.
They paid for you to go to Assumption,
yeah,
even though the ROTC unit was next door.
Yeah, great question. So the Bay State Battalion is the ROTC program for Worcester, Massachusetts. I think there's 7 or 8 colleges: Clark, WPI, Worcester Tech,
right,
Assumption, Holy Cross, and it's made up of all of the different colleges there. And so yes, that scholarship was transferable to Assumption. So I signed up and then did my 4 years and then graduated in 2005. Were commissioned as a second lieutenant.
And it was still going on.
And it was still going on. Captain Ryder
hardly, huh? Yeah.
Captain Ryder was right. Yeah.
That's very. So I love football. What was your position in college?
So I was a defensive lineman and a linebacker. Not a very good one. Assumption's a good college program now. It wasn't when I was there, probably because of me.
Oh gosh. Well, you must have been a big guy. How much did you weigh being a defensive lineman?
Yeah, I was, 40 pounds lighter than I am now. So I was still a big guy, but I wasn't quite as big as I am now. You know how it is.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Well, I often, my guests will end up talking about football, team sports, and all that kind of stuff, the rigor of it, just because of my interest. And this weekend being the Super Bowl, I'm just curious. You got to pick. Are you going with Kansas City? Or are you going with by the time this airs, you're either going to be a genius or a fool based on who you pick.
I know. Kansas City scores at will. The Tampa Bay defense is really good. I think Kansas City will win the game, but it's really hard to bet against Tom Brady. Really hard to bet.
I gotta tell you, I haven't liked the guy until this year, because I just wasn't a New England fan. So I'm voting for the GOAT. I'll go ahead and stick my neck out there
Good.
on this one as well. Okay, so back to recruiting military. When I was coming along many hundreds of years ago, seems like there really wasn't the emphasis on hiring military, but you know let's peel this thing apart here. I believe, and I bet you've got a lot of thoughts on this topic, that the experience in the crucible of the military makes somebody a great employee. Can you talk
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, Bob, it's something the jury's out. Like a lot of organizations realize that now. The military is a leadership factory, right? It's leaders teaching other leaders how to become better leaders. And organizations have really understand that crucible that you mentioned of not just perseverance and all the front page things, right? The values that we bring to the table, but also that understanding of leadership in new circumstances and thinking about what you've done in the service and how those standard operating procedures, or how we think about standard operating procedures, how we think about policies and procedures, how we enforce those leadership standards across organizations are really where companies say, yeah, this is the type of culture and values that we want to instill in our organization. And they look to the military and particularly those veterans to do that for them.
I kind of had the epiphany in 2008, that my best clients were the military veteran-led companies. One of the things that gets a lot of talk is, and maybe there's some misperceptions out there, but it's the translating my skills in the service into skills in business. That just aren't a lot of job openings for knuckle dragging machine gunners, for tank loaders, for, whatever it might be. Let's talk a little bit about that. And when you're talking to businesses about that, what's the pitch?
I specifically talk about the misconceptions, right? Hollywood doesn't do us any favors. They make movies about Tom Cruise and Army Rangers and all that good stuff. They don't make movies about the finance department. They don't make movies about, the technicians that's making sure Tom Cruise's aircraft can talk back from the forward edge of freedom, right? And so helping organizations, and particularly veterans too, is like you have a ton of transferable skill sets. We just have to make sure that we're highlighting those things that we're good at so we can talk to organizations about it. People will overcome those misconceptions. I mean, there's never been a time now where diversity and inclusion, all the things that are out there, when we talk about our own biases against certain types, including veterans, that again, Hollywood doesn't help us out. Have you ever seen a movie where the officer's competent? Have we ever seen a movie where the drill sergeant's not, screaming and yelling at their soldiers?
They had that Navy SEAL Team 6 program on last year, and I couldn't get through the first 10 minutes of it. It was so atrocious.
Yeah, that's not the service that we know, and we just have to help those organizations understand that, hey, those transferable skill sets are more than just turning a wrench. It's being on time every time. It's showing up. It's doing the extra things. All things that are intrinsic values about mission completion. So there are tons of opportunities for knuckle dragging cavalry guys like me and you. There's tons of them. We just have to make sure that we're networking and talking to those organizations about the values that we bring to the table so those companies can start recognizing it and fighting off some of those misconceptions.
Let's I'm going to bounce around a little bit here. I'm going to be a little ADD on this topic, but I think there are a lot of business out there that want to appear to be veteran friendly. It's a marketing campaign to the extent, but what's the burden maybe that you guys are carrying to make these companies really veteran ready? Let's talk about the cultural aspects of hiring veterans, because one of the statistics, I'm not sure whether this is true or not, but there seems to be a lot of turnover in the first job, which would be a real concern to you as a recruiter. Let's talk about those kinds of things.
So really what you're talking about, Bob, is what we've kind of defined as the trust gap. And the trust gap is, as veterans, companies say, or we say about companies, this is just a marketing ploy. They don't really want to hire me. They don't appreciate what I've done. And then the trust gap on the hiring manager side, right? We have to kind of put ourselves sometimes in the company side, is that, hey, this candidate, this veteran has 80% of the skills that we want, but they've never set foot in a manufacturing facility before ever. So they have to make that leap too. And I can tell you completely with 100% confidence and honesty that everybody's hearts and minds are in the right place when it comes to hiring veterans. Companies are not out there going, let's just stick a flag on the website to recruit veterans. I promise you that's not happening. What you're talking about, that trust gap, is where are my transferable skills as the veteran? And then the company saying, where are the transferable skills that I need? And how do we marry that up in a way that's great for both parties? So I can hopefully tell the entire network out there that if you're looking for work, don't be discouraged or disgruntled saying, these companies really don't want to hire me. This is a marketing ploy. The war for talent is still on, even in this crazy pandemic. The companies need great people all of the time, and they see value in what we bring to the table. The problem is again, everybody's hearts and minds are in the right place, but how we're understanding how we talk to each other is where we're ships passing in the night. And there are things that we're kind of the veterans are up against. Things like this new talent software. There's artificially enhanced software that's on all of these new sites, these job application sites, where they have keyword searching and resume parsing. Well, part of the thing is we kind of stink at writing resumes still, right? Well, veterans aren't great at it. For all of the work that we try to take out acronyms and all that good stuff, we're still not fantastic at really talking about what a great senior non-commissioned officer does. And for all of the flack that veterans get, corporate America stinks at writing job descriptions. They're horrible at it. They're horrible at it. And so when veterans are looking for work, we found that veterans self-select at an extremely high rate. Think about, Bob, I use this example all the time. The ordnance community in the military. They're the most safety conscious human beings on the planet. They work with things that go boom all of the time.
Right.
There are dozens, thousands of safety positions that are open all across the country in corporate America. They never talk to each other. And the reason is because we stink at writing the resume, and then the safety position in manufacturing has a gazillion acronyms that if you weren't from corporate America, you don't know what they are. And so what we have to do is really sit down and understand, what is that company looking for? What do I bring to the table? And how do I communicate and network with the right person so I can get that interview? Because we're going to win the interviews. We just got to get past that first initial step of clicking and getting through all of the other stuff. And that's where RecruitMilitary and my organization really tries to do, is find those organizations that see that value, find those organizations that have those transferable skills that we understand. We want to create focus for companies so we can get wins and close the trust gap for both the veteran and corporate America, so we can kind of get everybody together. It's all well-intentioned. It's just ships passing in the night sometimes.
Let's break down the market a little bit. I mean, are you working with people as young as, the 20 somethings all the way up to senior executive level types of veterans?
Yeah, so RecruitMilitary is made up of 4 different organizations. So we have the RecruitMilitary, Bradley Morris, which is a recruiting placement firm, our MBA Veterans Network, which we work with the top 75 business schools in the country, and helping those folks that are using their post 9/11 GI Bill find those MBA positions when they get out of the service. And then also we have what we call ExecuVets, which is we're helping field grades, generals, et cetera, and folks would have some experience find even board level seats at some larger organizations. So we work with the one-termers like me, all the way to folks that have had industry experience and are looking for their next career. We want the community to think about us as like, how do I kind of continue to use RecruitMilitary as a resource from either my first job all the way into sitting on that board seat one day with an organization. So we work with everybody.
What are there some unique challenges for the younger post 9/11 or maybe in the last 10-year veterans, and has the COVID environment abnormally impacted some of the folks in that space?
Yeah, so to answer the first part of the question, I don't think it's any more or less challenging than it was for you. there's different technology in terms of our ability to get to LinkedIn and find a hiring manager or find somebody on Facebook or Instagram and start direct messaging them and say, I'm interested in your company. I want to come work for you. So there's some of the more advantages that we have that analog team didn't have, right?
Right.
In terms of the COVID environment, yes, I mean, site visits are a great example. It's companies and organizations right now that are still in quarantine, et cetera. It's difficult to do an interview and then go visit a facility and meet the team. A lot of it's done via Zoom or what we're doing here today. But it's all overcomable. But yeah, there are some definitely unique challenges that are out there in the market now based on the pandemic.
Jake, are a lot more of these jobs remote now? I mean, I just imagine a lot of people are not going to be going back into the office. One of the advantages I see from my business is I can recruit people to work for me remotely, and it doesn't matter where they are. I don't have to be in a 20-mile radius of Richmond, Virginia.
It's a fantastic question, and that has changed. I've watched the market change in the last 6 months drastically, where companies are saying, okay, wait a minute. We don't need to get somebody to a rural part of the country to have great talent, especially if it's an individual contributor role, right? Where you don't have a big team that you have to see in the manufacturing floor every single day. So that is absolutely happening. And the other thing that's really beneficial is the spouse network. Our spouse network that we always forget about is very transient. I was in the military for 4 years. I moved every 18 months without failure. A well-intentioned hiring manager sees my resume and goes, yeah, Jake was in the service. That makes sense. They see my wife's resume and they say, oh, she's a job hopper, right?
Right.
What's unique about now where we are today is being able to find some of those positions that are work from home, that are remote, that we can plug in through Zoom. And it doesn't matter if the spouse is moving around the country. I can still do my job very successfully. So that's been a really kind of a unique and a good market shift in the way of remote employees. Yeah, that's a great question.
And a lot of businesses addressing the military spouse trend, the transient lifestyle. One right in your backyard, a company called Liberty Source. I don't know if you're familiar with Liberty Source, but
yeah.
Interesting business. Let me ask another question, just kind of popped into my mind. When I was a young man, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have all of these things. I think a lot of young people are committing professional suicide by getting on social media. Employers check you out now. What kind of coaching would you give to young people about that right now? Is that a big issue?
Yeah, the internet is a tattoo.
Interesting.
Think about it that way.
Yes.
Okay. Once it's out there, it's not coming off. It's not coming off.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, yes, employers absolutely check your background and all of the digital signatures you're putting out there. So, career suicide, I don't know. I think that, the internet is, again, it's got a lot of stuff on there, but if you're looking for work, you should make sure you police that up as best as possible.
It becomes an integral part of the due diligence process, right?
Sure.
So let's go back and talk about Bradley Morris and RecruitMilitary and that family of businesses. You mentioned to me before the program that's kind of part of a private equity umbrella, a roll-up that's been going on. What's going on there? What's the strategy? What are the pieces of the puzzle? And what can you share with us about the broader company?
Yeah, so what we do is with our 4 different businesses, like I said, RecruitMilitary, Bradley Morris, MBA Veterans Network, and then ExecuVets, is we have an array of services from recruiting. We have the world's largest veteran and spouse job board, the largest career fair schedule in anybody in our space, both virtual and physical. We've had to shift a lot to virtual.
Yeah, you had to pivot, didn't you?
Yeah, we had to pivot, and it's been great because, again, that transient community, somebody who wants to find an employment on the East or West Coast, we can do that. We can help them with that. We have an array of digital and print media. Our site drives a ton of traffic in terms of helping organizations expose themselves to the veteran community and helps veterans find fantastic employment. And really what I do is help organizations build out larger veteran and diversity hiring programs. And again, I truly believe everybody's hearts and minds are in the right place. And one thing corporate America is starting to realize is that the military is the most diverse corporation in the world. 43% of the military is made up of women and minorities. And so organizations that are really focusing on diversity and inclusion are turning to the veteran community and saying, wait, you guys have been diverse for a long time. How do we make sure that we're having all colors of the rainbow in our organization like the military does? And so what I do is help organizations understand where those focus areas are, that we have the transferable skills that make the most amount of sense, and then help those organizations kind of build out those programs so they're targeting the veterans that make the most amount of sense for their organization to, again, close that trust gap and help organizations really find the right veteran talent.
Let's drill down on one piece of it. I want to talk about the MBA side of the business, the post 9/11 GI Bill. Folks who use that. You mentioned 75 MBA programs around the country. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have a fantastic partnership with the top 75 business schools in the country. And we hold an event once a year at the Navy Pier in Chicago, where we bring organizations together that see value in not just the veteran experience, but also that degree program. And we help veterans that are in their first year getting ready to start their second year, kind of look at that internship level. And we bring them all together for a pretty large, significant two-day event where we do meet and greets, all that good stuff, so those companies can really tap into those folks.
Is a Darden School at the University of Virginia on the list? I got my fingers crossed that it's a yes to that.
My brother's a Darden grad, so if he'd be mad if it weren't. So yes.
Yeah. So when I was there, they had the Darden Military Association. They've also had they like to pride themselves as what they refer to as a yellow ribbon school. Now, is that a common terminology among
Still
your
a thing,
group?
yep.
You know, not every school embraces the military out there. Did you guys encounter anything in some of your MBA programs where they didn't recognize the leadership qualities?
Yeah, I haven't. I don't see. That's the thing is I haven't had any of those bad experiences in my career. And I've been here for 12 years. I've cold called a lot of organizations. I've never had anybody go, there's no way we're hiring veterans, and hang up the phone on me. They hang up on the phone on me for other reasons. But I don't see a lot of that sentiment out there now. I really truthfully don't.
When now, are you guys engaged by companies and seeking specific talent? Are you also pooling veterans as talent and seeking opportunity, playing both sides of the recruitment equation?
Yep. So we're wide open to veterans. There's no cost associated with any of our services, any of our career fairs, being on our job board, et cetera. We want, again, think about that community as a place where they can go to kind of continue to advance their career, whether they're making that transition for the first time all the way through those board level seats. What we do with organizations, again, is the jury's out, they're seeking veterans often. And the problem is they really are unsure how to do it. And so what we do is help organizations build out those programs by tapping into all of our resources to really find the right veterans. Because again, that's this is not a clicks and impressions kind of shotgun game. You can't just say, hey, we're hiring veterans. We have to really think about it in terms of veterans are people. Somebody from the Coast Guard had a very different experience in the service than I did. And both are equally weighted as awesome, but we did different things and we have different experiences. So how we understand what a military program looks like, you have to understand what everybody has done in the service and then what makes the best business case for you so you can go target those folks, right? Too often companies will think about it in terms of we want to hire veterans, but we don't know where to start. We don't know where to start. Helping introduce, again, it's like diversity and inclusion. It's about exposure. Let's get these fantastic people in front of your hiring managers. Let's get them in front of your talent acquisition teams. Let's help you look a little bit past the resume. You don't have to look far past it, but let's look a little bit past it. Get to that interview, understand what that candidate brings to the table, and all of a sudden, magic starts to happen and companies start to really build out fantastic programs.
Let me ask this question. Your title is Vice President Enterprise Sales. How big does a company need to be to kind of work with RecruitMilitary?
We run the gambit from the largest organization in the world to the smallest. So it doesn't need to be a big. If you see value in veterans, then we'd love to talk to you and figure out how we can help you. So while I build programs for our largest customers, we also have folks that are just local businesses that see value and want to come attend an event and go meet some great veterans and bring them on board. So there's no disclaimers. We're welcome to help all that are coming through the door.
So I'll ask a hypothetical question. If you had a 60-year-old guy show up on your Zoom and talk to you, and he's thinking about doing one more thing, before he rides off into the sunset, what advice would you give to that hypothetical former Army combat engineer?
Who? Who? The first thing is understand what you want to do, right? As I just said, organizations, I advise them all the time that this is not just a shotgun approach. It's tackle football, right? Bringing it back around. It's tackle football. You can't expect a company to say, oh, this is exactly where Bob fits. You have to help them get there. So understand what you want to do, tailor your resume to what you want to do, and then start networking. Now we can help, like we pour gasoline on that networking because we already have a bunch of folks that are looking for veterans, but what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What interests you, et cetera? And then just get out there. Again, it's awesome. We're living in a golden age of getting out there. You can find the people that you want to be a part of as long as you set yourself to what you want to do.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about coaching some young people. I mean, I've had some interns come and work for me. One of the things that I do on a weekly basis is get them to tell me how many people they have in their LinkedIn network.
Yeah.
And just by asking the question, their numbers go up. And, when they graduate from college, I want them to have a professional network, right? You got to dig the well before you're thirsty. What kind of coaching points would you give that transitioning young, veteran who's maybe in his early 20s and trying to start out? That's a different bit of advice.
Yeah. The networking thing is not a bad piece of advice. I totally agree. What I've seen in my career is the biggest return on investment any candidate can make is understanding how to interview. You have to understand how to interview. Have success stories ready. We use the STAR format: situation, task, action, result. What was the situation? What was I tasked with doing? What actions did I take, and how was that resolved? What did I do to get a great result out of it? You should have 4 or 5 of those success stories built for yourself. You should also have 1 or 2 failure stories, because companies are going to ask you, tell me about a time where you screwed up, and you should have something, because we all do. Don't ever be arrogant enough to say I've never made a mistake. And then you have to do your research. You have to do your research on what, it's a two-way street. That organization wants to see that, hey, you care about enough to know about that company that you're interviewing with. So have some great questions prepared so you're ready to engage with an interviewer. If you're a good interviewer, you're going to be okay. A lot of the networking will get you in front of the right people. But the biggest return on investment I've seen by far for anybody is know how to interview and be ready to tell your stories.
Years ago, I had my midlife crisis a long time ago now, Jake. And, but, I picked up this book called What Color is Your Parachute, and did the entire, self-assessment exercise. And candidly, it was probably the best $11.95 I've ever invested in my lifetime. Is there a Bible out there that, or some kind of resource that you recommend to people that are thinking about transition? I'm playing stump the guest here now.
It is a little bit of a stump the guest. I'm trying to think of the best resource that I don't know if you've just read General Mattis's book. That's a great book. It's not about the transition, but it is about life learning and things like that. I'd have to think about it in terms of the best resource. Of course, there's our website, but I wouldn't be so candid.
But here's what we'll do to the guest out there. We'll give Jake the benefit of the doubt, but if he wants to put a link to something that he thinks of after the interview, we'll be sure to share it in the notes. Got one last question for you. Is there an individual, somebody you've worked with over the last dozen years in this business that just kind of stands out? Maybe there's a story that you'd like to share of somebody that you've come across in your 12 years that just really, kind of stands out in your memory. And I bet there are a bunch of them.
Yeah, there are a ton of them. I think about there's a gentleman that was one of the first placements I made 12 years ago. And when I was separating and coming to RecruitMilitary, Bradley Morris at the time, when I separated from the service, it was during the Great Recession, right? It was 2000.
Yeah.
And work was hard to come by. And a gentleman that I was working with was an E7, I think it was a Nuke ET. And he said, Jake, I have to get back to Florida. I've been on the road for 20 years. I feel like I haven't seen my kids grow up. I have to get back to Florida. And I said, Eddie, it's the Great Recession. I'll do my best. I'll do everything I can to help you out. We'll find something for you. And it took about 3 months of me thinking about Eddie and saying, all right, I've got this great guy. I want to help him out. Who can I talk to? Who can I network with? Who knows somebody down in Florida? And he ended up getting in an awesome position with a company called Whitlock Packaging Group. Mm-hmm. And they brought him on as a supervisor, and he's still there. So those are the kinds of things that are really fun. I tell people all the time, I get to sell my friends. It's just like, this is, the brothers and sisters that we served with, we know what they did. And it's fun for me to sit down with companies and say, here's where you're missing the boat. Here's the transferable skills that you're not thinking about. It's easy to make that leap into maintenance or something like that. But the best human resources people in the world are in the United States military. The best talent acquisition team you could ever hire is a bunch of Marine Corps recruiters that go door to door and ask moms and dads for their sons and daughters. But companies and organizations need to sometimes hear that to go, oh, wait, yeah, they're doing that all the time. They're going to high schools recruiting kids. And so that passion is to help organizations really understand that there's such a myriad of transferable skills. We just have to make sure that we're putting the right folks in front of you and exposing you to them so you can actually benefit, your company can benefit, right?
That's a great story and a great exclamation point for our conversation today. It always amazes me how fast 30 minutes goes by. Yeah. We've been listening to Jake Hutchings. He is the Senior Vice President of Enterprise Sales at RecruitMilitary. He's in Chesapeake, Virginia, a great Army veteran. Jake, thank you so much for stepping into the spotlight.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Bob.
You've been listening to the Spotlight on the VeteranCrowd Network. We're bringing veterans and military spouses who are making a difference in our community on Tuesdays and Fridays. Thanks so much. Again, thanks, Jake, for being on the program. Bravo Zulu to you, and that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight by VeteranCrowd. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and uploads, please visit our website at VeteranCrowdNetwork.com. We'll see you next time.